Hello everybody, Daryl Vance here, EAK Farm. Got a little side gig going on here, dealing with what I used to do. We have a Caterpillar truck engine, a C12, that is getting coolant in the oil. This is a common failure with these engines, as well as the C10. These come after the 3176. The 3176 was similar with a little bit different scenario. The C12 coolant oil usually is one of two things. Usually, anything can happen, but head gasket or water pump, and it usually leaks coolant to the inside. I'll show you in this video what to check for to verify coolant in the oil. I'll show you what to look for to troubleshoot it. I'll show you what to take loose. Troubleshooting is actually the easy part. Caterpillar actually had a service letter on this back whenever they came out, shortly after they came out, when stuff was still under warranty. So, very specific procedure, specific in the type of head gasket you're using, whether your head is scalloped, the block is scalloped, or if it's straight. That will make a difference in what head gasket to use. The other thing is the torque sequence used. And I'm an old field mechanic, and I'm guilty of a lot of one ugga-dugga, two ugga-dugga, if you know what I mean, impacts. But on this, you're definitely going to want to torque it, because I have done it exactly how it says, and it makes a difference. You'll see a difference, whether it's the head bolt stretching or the head gasket compressing. It makes a difference. I'm going to try to find all that information and share it with you, and I'm going to be removing the oil pan after I verify that it is coolant in the oil. And I'll show you what tools you'll need to do that. And I'll show you where to look to find the coolant leak internally, what you'll need to do there in that situation is, once the oil pan is removed, then you will want to pressurize the cooling system and see where your water is coming in at. If it's coming down the front cover, you'll know it's water pump, because it's coming out of the gear train. If it's coming out of the head gasket, it's usually toward the driver's side, if I remember correctly. We're going to verify it though. Now, in a perfect world, you will want to put coolant dye in this before you pressurize the cooling system, and it needs to be circulated so the dye is mixed in well. But we don't have no dye, so we're going to make an attempt to do it without the dye. So let's get started. Okay, so we have an open crankcase ventilation system straight from the inside of the engine, and it exhausts the fumes disposal, I think is what Cat calls it, to the outside. Now, usually when these are getting water in the oil, you will notice it building up in the tops of valve covers, oil fill cap, which actually I don't notice the sludge there so much. So I'm gonna, if you don't care to get your finger dirty, I'll run up in this blow by tube. Let's see if we got any sludge. No. I'm not so sure this has a water and oil problem. Just to verify, it's not going the other way. The antifreeze is clean. So I'm gonna pull a valve cover to verify, but so far, I don't see nothing. Okay, so far, I don't see signs of coolant in the oil. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna drain a little bit off the bottom of the oil pan here, see if it's showing any signs in the oil. If not, we'll pull the valve cover. If we don't have sludge in the valve cover, we'll pull an oil sample and go back and talk to the customer, because there's no need to tear this thing down if there ain't an issue. See if I can get in here and let you see here. I don't see no water or antifreeze. I have to pull an oil sample. So we're going to pull the valve cover. Takes a 10 millimeter, 6 bolts. We'll pull the front one. The reason we're pulling it is condensation, water, coolant. It goes to the top. It tries to evaporate, gets caught up in the top. Of course, it mixes with the oil some, makes a sludge. It's a good place to look for sludge if you are thinking you're getting water and oil, which usually it's a telltale sign in the crankcase ventilation, but we ain't seen it there either. So let's peel the valve cover, see what we got. Okay, so we pulled the valve cover, and yes, there is signs of sludge. Excuse me. Now this is not like your normal oil buildup. This is thick, gooey, leaves a big, thick trail. So it does have moisture, and something else to verify from. Let me see if I can get you up here to see. Is if notice the rust on the engine brake there. That's another telltale sign. So we are getting coolant in the oil, but it's not real bad yet. We could luck out and just be a water pump. All right, I'm gonna pull the oil pan. Okay, let me go in a little more detail here. 1.5 inches on your drain plug. That's on most Cat engines. 1.5 inches. We usually pull it on the furthest one back, but I tried to get that one out and it is not moving. So I went to the front one. So luckily he hasn't had this thing running in a little while. So all the oil should be dripped. What's going to drip. And what we'll do, I believe those are 15 millimeter. I will verify and let you know, but we pull all the oil pan bolts. We drop the oil pan. We put pressure on the cooling system. If nothing shows right away, we bar the engine around. We roll the engine and see if we can get drips of antifreeze. We'll also look and see if we can see rust trails where it's been setting. That'd be the best case scenario. Okay. Something else I'm going to bring up. I noticed this has a lot of fines build up on the drain plug. Okay. we can take and wash that off with some brake clean, but it's real fine. It's not chunks. But these have floating wrist pins. They have a plastic cap on both sides of the piston, and those plastic caps keep the wrist pin from walking out. I have seen them caps break and come out, but you'll usually find them in your oil or your oil pan. And in that case, then it's possible that the wrist pin is working up and down in the cylinder. And it'll run that way a little while, but then it's catastrophic. It will detonate itself. So these bolts are 16 millimeter, I told you wrong. There's a bolt, a washer, a spacer, and there is a rubber bushing or grommet, whatever you want to call it, isolator, I think might be what Pat calls it, up in there. See the rubber there. So when you pull it down, you probably want to take all that stuff out before you pull it down, otherwise it's easily lost. Okay folks, the oil pan is off, and we're looking for any signs of antifreeze hanging back through there. If it's the head gasket, it more than likely will leak over here on the side of the cam. If I remember correctly, probably back around the back. So I'll have to go back behind the steering axle here and look. But I'm checking everything out up here on the front right now. If it was a water pump, we would need to go right up in there. Look right up into the gear train there. And if it was a water pump, it'd be running right down that front cover and building up right there. So I don't see a sign as of right now. So what the next step will be, I'll look back through there, and if I still don't see nothing, we will put pressure on the cooling system and roll the engine a little bit with maybe some clean cardboard or some white sucky pad or something down here on the ground to where we will notice the antifreeze and see what's what. So I'm still not seeing nothing real evident yet. Of course, the discoloration in the crank back here kind of odd, but also on a lot of engines, I haven't seen it a whole lot with these, but right up in there, you can look between the block and the liner. A lot of times, the liner seals will leak also. Okay, everybody, so there's not an obvious problem. So we're gonna have to dig a little deeper. Something else we may want to have to eliminate. Any other places that the antifreeze can get in. Maybe the air compressor, it's water cooled. Get in through the oil return. I've got a lot of just grit and debris in the oil pans, kind of throw me for a loop. So the customer bought this truck used, you know, kind of a pig in a poke kind of deal. But he needs the parts. He bought it for a parts truck, so either way, he's gonna come out on it. But we're just trying to see why the supposed coolant in the oil, what is causing this. So I guess the next thing to do will be to put something nice and clean underneath it and pressurize the cooling system. I've talked about it a bunch. Earlier I said in the perfect case scenario, you would put dye in the cooling system, circulate it, then pull the oil pan, then pressurize it, and use a black light. Because sometimes it's hard to see antifreeze in a dirty, oily bottom end of an engine. Okay, I have a radiator cap that is made to apply pressure or vacuum to a cooling system. I do not have it with me, so I'm making do with what we got, and we're using shop air, and we are being gentle with it because it's not regulated. And I happen to notice that the radiator cap is missing the rubber. So what I'm doing, I'm putting the cap on. I'm feeding air in through the puke tube. It's going in there. You can see all this stuff swelling, and I'm trying to hold pressure on it and then occasionally rolling it. And so far, I have not seen any antifreeze in the bottom, but no more than what was in it to begin with. We may not see none. It may be one of them deals. I know when I worked for the dealership, there was times that we would leave regulated air overnight, sometimes all day, for a whole shift, to try to find coolant getting in. Other times, you wouldn't have to put any pressure. You pull the pan and it was just dripping. So here's probably where a little bit of coolant dye would have come in handy in a black line. But like I say, you do with what you got to do with. So I'm gonna talk to the customer, see what his plans is for the truck, let him know this may be a deal where we just have to bite the bullet and go in, dig deeper, see if we can come up with something. That, or put regulated air on it, leave it overnight, put some nice clean cardboard on the ground so that we can see any drips. And we're looking for drips of antifreeze, water. Okay, everybody. So this week, we will try the regulated air, leaving it on overnight, see if we can get any drips. That's per the customer's request. And then from that point on, depending on what we find in the next video, we will be dealing with the repair. So I'll show you that. And I don't wish no bad luck on him. If it's a head gasket, it's a little bit bigger job. So I hope it ain't for him, but if it is, it's good for you all, because you all gonna get to see the repair. I'm having to do these videos in 15-20 minute increments because of storage that I have on my device here. So we'll just consider this part one. Thanks for watching.